Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kramer. We're going to have an inspiring conversation today with my guest, Sean Frost. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thanks, Alicia. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
When I said inspiring, I meant it because you shared with me a little bit about your journey. And I know that for all of us as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we go through sort of the trials and the tribulations of life. Business is not an easy thing, and life is not an easy thing. And business can really be a catalyst for growth. But there's really not as much separation between business and life as we've been sort of led to believe. At least I know, growing up, it kind of looked like they were like these separate things. And that's sort of how society conditions us, right? You get a job or you have a career, you have a business, and then you have a family over there. You have a personal life over there. But to really thrive, we have to master ourselves. So I'd love to start by just taking a few moments, let our audience know like what you got going on in your own business, and then let's get a little bit into the story behind that and maybe some of the mindset shifts that you've had along the way.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm a real estate broker here in Ottawa, Canada. I run my own real estate team. And then I also own two licensed custom home building companies here in Ottawa. To build a custom home, just to put it into perspective, to build a custom home here in Ottawa or Ontario, which is the province that I live in, you need to be licensed. So you need education for that. It's pretty tedious, so it's not, it doesn't get thrown around very easily. So it is an accomplishment that I'm proud of. So I do own two licensed custom home companies, and then I have a property management company, which I'm fortunate enough to be teamed up with a lot of friends of mine from elementary school. So we have a property management company where we it's also an investment company where we actually own the properties that we're managing. And then I'm also in the music industry. So I also work as an advisory role / management / business operations for an artist out with Columbia Records. That's from Ottawa, Canada as well. And he's currently out in LA for the last year and a half. So I'm kind of working East Coast time and West Coast time.
So you've got your fingers in a lot of different entrepreneurial ventures. Somebody who just saw sort of the highlight reel might think that it must be easy for you. You must have some kind of special talent or ability that the average person doesn't have. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that that's probably not the case, correct?
You are 100% correct. There is, my mom would say that, my mom might argue otherwise, but aside from her, I'm definitely just as ordinary and can be as extraordinary as everybody else can be.
Let's talk a little bit about where this entrepreneurial sort of thing came from, and what are some of the challenges that you had to work through to get to where you are today?
It's a great question. And I think it stems from from probably three different areas. So three different branches. Oddly enough, one of them is from my mom, who I grew up, it was just the two of us, single family, parent. So it was just my mom, and she always did work a 9 to 5. We came back up to Ottawa from Florida when I was pretty young. She was working at the hospital. She worked, a 9 to 5 job. She was well respected. It was a decent job. I think the pay was a little tight. So like we grew up tight. I didn't know that as a kid, but one of the things about becoming an entrepreneur or just finding my feet in that space was her work ethic and her integrity. So I know that she was so well respected at her job, and she was always working with, radiologists and like professions that made a good living, that made a lot of money. And she would be, kind of that mother hen role where she was looking after everybody, but, not on the same pay grade. But I understood that right away, like growing up, that she was really, really well respected based on the work and the effort that she was putting in. So that kind of gave me that consistency into hard work. And then on the other side, my dad, he was a quote unquote part-time dad, but still did a really good job in terms of like I saw him every Wednesday, saw him every second weekend, and he never missed a sports game. So there were things that as I grew up, I started picking up on, like not missing those 6 a.m. sports games and stuff. And I was like, okay, like he's really holding it down for me. But he was the opposite of a typical 9 to 5. He literally, like, once every 2 months would have a new business card at a new job. And they weren't always his businesses, but I was exposed to like being able to bounce around from jobs, which might not necessarily be a good thing, but it created that notion in my mind, like you don't have to be, I don't want to say stuck, but you don't have to be cemented. Like you don't have to be positioned and necessarily structured into like one career or one thing. And a lot of those jobs, he was trying businesses on the side. So he would create something, and my mom was always a good sport to support him, even though they were separated. And my nana, who I grew up at my grandparents' place, she would always make jokes about, oh, your dad's got a new business or he's in a new job. So she would make fun of him as a joke, but then, it was my mom's mom, but she would also like support him as well, which I always thought was really cool, that my parents weren't together, but they still had that like that bond and that love kind of thing. And then from there, because my dad's best friend was a sound engineer, a touring sound engineer, I was fortunate enough to see a lot of. I grew up in the music world, so I was really lucky to like see a lot of bands and do backstage stuff and do tour stuff. And instead of like taking me to the toy store as a kid, my dad would take me to the record store and give me an option of picking any record that I wanted. And getting a taste of the music stuff, I stumbled, well, kind of just fell into it because I wanted to, but I started producing in high school, producing music. And of course, there's no job and unless you're working at a recording studio, but I was a kid. I started producing music and selling it. So that was the first taste that I had of like starting my own business, because I was just making music in a home studio and selling it abroad and actually making money like while I was going to school.
That's awesome. So then let's talk a little bit about the mindset stuff, because the backstory that you've shared with us so far has it's a pretty good it's a pretty good foundation for what you shared in terms of who you are today and what you've got going on. So it makes a lot of sense to the average person. But there are there's still those less desirable things that we pick up on growing up that can throw a wrench in the spokes, so to speak, as we are embarking on our business ventures. So from that perspective, what are some of the mindset things that you had to overcome as you were growing your businesses?
I think it was the trial and error. So it was the getting over, um, and I was lucky in this regard, but like I've never been afraid to fall. And I think that's actually a thing that I've been really blessed with. That's been lucky on my end, is that I've never really had that feeling like what are people going to think about me, or um, I've always been confident in the fact that I like betting on myself. So some things that I've had to overcome is being in the wrong space. Like that's probably been the hardest. As I was working here in Kansas City doing music stuff and going to university back in here in Ottawa. So I was coming back and forth. The music thing kind of went belly up while I was writing my exams. For unforeseen, unfortunate circumstances that happened when you're in, tougher areas and tougher neighborhoods. So I decided to stay in Ottawa, and I actually cashed out my music money, and I was, getting into my mid-20s, and I thought, okay, like maybe this is time that I quote unquote grow up. And I got a job. Like I got a regular job in the healthcare system. The pay was okay. I think I was 22 years old or something. And um, I really liked the job, but there was no room for growth. And I knew that I was stuck. Like I was kind of like, okay, this is fine for now, but I can't be here forever. And then I don't even know if it's a feeling of complacency, but you just like time just passes you by if you kind of stop moving. And this was the first time in my life that I kind of felt like, oh my God, like life's kind of passing me by right now. Like there's nothing physical, there's nothing actually wrong with my life, but it's not where I'm supposed to be. This isn't who I am. I'm not fulfilled. And I'm doing it to myself. Like there's nobody to blame here but myself. And again, it's a weird thing because like things aren't bad at the moment. And but I knew that it wasn't enough and it wasn't me. And I think that's where the mindset, I started going down that rabbit hole. Because it starts as like a slow burn, like it's a slow thing of being like, okay, you know what? Like that's all right. It's good for right now. I'm gonna figure it out. And then like 3 years pass, and you're like, wait a second, like I'm still here. Like I'm still not doing anything. And so then I took a leap of faith. I had a colleague who was a general contractor, really good friend of mine, and I was like, hey, we're gonna start a general contracting company. He's gonna handle all the construction side. I'll handle like the business side, and we'll see how it goes. So then I was like, okay, back in the entrepreneurial space. I kept my job at the hospital. So I was like, okay, I've got my bases covered. My paychecks are there. I can embark on a new journey, kind of moonlight it until it gets going, and then make the transition out of the healthcare and like the 9 to 5 job. And that way I'm not really taking many risks, especially financially, like I'll be covered so that I can actually focus on the new business endeavor from a place of like trying to build it rather than like needing to make money off of it right away. And then the whole focus turns on making money and not nurturing the business and actually growing it. So I tried to do that. Well, I absolutely hated this business, this general contracting company, pretty much right out of the gate. And the problem is it wasn't a flop. Like I don't want to say we weren't crazy successful, but we were getting jobs and making some money. So now I had like this job that I was like 9 to 5 that I was totally unfulfilled in the sense of like my future. I knew that it wasn't like I didn't have a future for me, but I really liked the day-to-day job, but it just wasn't enough. And then I would finish that and then go into this general contracting job, kind of working 2 shifts a day, like 2 8-hour shifts a day, and absolutely despise it. And that was like the entrepreneurial spot that I actually invested some money into, a little bit of money into, and I was totally unhappy there. So then mentally I don't want to say drained, but like I was just like I was drowning because I was like I didn't like either aspect for different reasons. So then I didn't have a lot of stuff to like grab onto, like to gravitate to or to even like hang on to like keep me afloat. So I really, really, really struggled at that time.
What was the breakthrough? Like when did you finally get on your right path?
Right. So, because I had cashed out of the music space, at that point, I was really, really, really missing music. I didn't know how to get back to it, and I kind of gave up. And so I was struggling there too about giving up. So knowing that I had left the music space, I literally woke up and looked at the general contracting company and said, no, I'm done. I'm out. That's it. I'm not happy. I had reached my breaking point where I said, yeah, see you later. My buddy, I had a good chat with him, let him know that I just couldn't do it anymore. A true friend is a true friend, and he said, yeah, I know. I could see it in your face. It's all good, man. So let's shut it down, and I think I'll be okay on my own. And I said, all right, and not with the same like we didn't keep the company going. He went off and was kind of going into the unknown. He didn't know what his next step was, which I kind of felt guilty about because it was on me shutting it down. So I left there and I just stayed at the hospital, and things didn't get better right away. I just knew that out of the two aspects, like that was the one that needed to go. So that one's the one that went. I was just super fortunate that I have another good friend of mine that approached me and just said, you know what, you need to be a real estate broker. And I said, well, no, I might not. Why? Like, tell me why I need to be a real estate broker. And he said, well, and again, one of my best friends, part of the same knit group that I've had since as long as I can remember, said these are the reasons why. No structure in terms of there's no 9 to 5. It's you're on all the time, but he's like, you're on all the time. And there's no cap, there's no ceiling. It's based on dedication, consistency, work ethic. And so he started running all these things, and I'm like, hey, like I know that I can do all that stuff, and I enjoy doing that stuff. And he said, and when I worked at the hospital, I worked in patient care. So I worked in radiology, but it was always with the patients. I'm a people person, and he's like, dude, like this real estate, you're getting in and you're literally helping people, one, make the biggest investment that they're ever going to make, but more importantly, you're making people happy, you're making dreams come true, and you're creating that environment that they're now, that family or those people are going to be creating everlasting memories. And so, he sold me on the dream of like how good it can feel to help somebody, right? And see those moments happen. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. Because again, I'm always down to enroll in a course or learn something. If I can pick up a little bit of information from something that's going to help me down the road even once, then I consider it a solid investment. And so I did. I embarked on the course, and luckily it was my calling. Like I knew as soon as I got licensed, literally the first showing I ever did, I put an offer in on a property. And that was just super fortunate because I obviously had no idea what I was doing. But I just felt it right away. I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. And there's no boss. And like I'm on my own here. And now I'm on this, kind of island again. But it was like, it was so freeing. So as soon as I got into that space, my rock bottom of career-wise and entrepreneurial mindset and all that stuff immediately rushed back. And I was like, oh my God, I'm alive again. Like it literally a light switch. Like I just felt different.
That's the inspiration that I was talking about. When someone is listening to another individual's story, there obviously are going to be a lot of differences. But there is this fundamental thing that we all can relate to, and that is sort of the feeling of not being in the right place, which feels like hell. I feel like it does. It feels like being lost. And then we go through that dark period for a while, but the desire for whatever our alignment is there, right? The thing that is our spark, our passion, our right place to be. That doesn't mean that there's not still going to be a lot of mindset work that we're going to have to do, a lot of new skills that we're going to have to learn, a lot of bumps that we're going to have along the way. But when you know that you're doing your right thing, you can feel it. And it makes those growth seasons feel that much more manageable, even if they're a little scary sometimes, even if they're a little hard sometimes. So for somebody who's listening, they might be able to relate to that feeling. Maybe the business that they're in right now is that same feeling for them. Maybe somebody listening is in the dark place, and their business is like your construction contracting business, where it's like something's just not quite right here. And I think it's important for us to remember that when we click into our right thing, we can feel it. And to acknowledge that if you don't feel it, then there probably is something else for you. Because I'm a firm believer, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but I have a feeling you might agree, that we all have that thing. And sometimes it's not just a single thing. Like you're doing all sorts of different stuff. But life should feel good, not without challenges, not without pain, not without growth, but it should feel right and good, whatever path we're on. So I know we have burned through like almost a half an hour already. I want
Sorry
to
about that.
I want to direct our listeners to connect with you, so they can watch your growth, watch your expansion. If they're looking to purchase a home in Ottawa, Canada, you're the guy, obviously, to reach out to. Can you share with our listeners how they can connect with you?
Most definitely. So the easiest way, Alicia, is if you go find me on Instagram. Instagram's the easiest and best because it's a one-stop shop. One, you can reach out to me from there. My email's on there, phone number's on there. But it's the being able to know me. So you'll be able to see every side of me. So I'm a dad first. That's me to the core. And then from there, you're going to see every side of my business and the rest of my family life too. So from being a dad to a husband to an entrepreneur in the real estate, the music, everywhere else. Instagram at I am Sean Frost is definitely the spot. You're going to see everything you need to know about me. And it's, it is kind of the mostly good, but like I do share things that don't work out and stuff like that too. So like you said, I do agree with you on that statement. And that's where I'm at now, is that I'm very comfortable saying no. Before I wasn't. That's something that I've recently learned in the last little while, is being comfortable and happy saying no to things, so that you do feel it when you find that right thing. You feel, it, you feel it. Those are the things you take on. It's not based on money. It's not based on desperation. It's easier said than done when you're in a position where it doesn't have to be based on those things, or they don't have to play as great of a factor. But I agree with you 1,000%, Alicia, that you'll feel it. And that's why on the entrepreneurial space, I only embark on things that come across my desk that I'm passionate about and that I feel are right. If the dollar amount is high and I'm like, I don't really care about it, or like, I'm not really that into it, well, then leave it for somebody else, because the right thing's going to hit my desk, or the right thing's going to come across or come to me, down the road, whether it's near or far, it doesn't matter. It's coming. So I'm going to take it when it comes.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much, Sean, for being with us today, sharing a little bit of your personal journey, and hopefully shifting a mindset or two. Somebody who needed to hear this conversation, maybe to give themselves permission to put their foot on the accelerator for the thing that does inspire them, that does light them up. And maybe for somebody else to say, it's okay to walk away from this thing that just is not my thing.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening. You know we're doing this for you. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.